Yo, 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 welcome to another edition of the Geeky Bros podcast. I'm your boy Tactix, back in my own crib. Yeah, that's what's up.
This is just Darcy in the new crib.
And I'm Big Geek Umar. My crib is always the same. How y'all doing?
Good, man, good.
Just like let that down at the last one there, you know?
I'm a Hufflepuff. What can I say?
Exactly.
All right, Umar, what's on the agenda for today?
Okay, so we do have some geeky news to go through. A couple of casting stuff that happened this past week, and also, and this will be later on in the podcast. I finally saw Extraction, so we can discuss that at last.
Yes.
Okay, so first bit of news is I'm not sure if you guys have been keeping up or knew about it, but they casted Miss Marvel for the new Disney Plus Marvel series called Ms. Marvel, and she's someone. You guys knew about that, right?
I did not.
You messaged the group chat, and that's how I found out about it. And then I Googled it, and I'm like, oh, she's Canadian. She's brown. The cast looks like it's brown. When the casting call went out, they asked for a bunch of brown people. I'm like, dope. That sounds good. That's what I know.
How about you, T?
I'm going to be honest. I did not really prepare for this podcast here today, so I'm going in blind. So yeah, I did not know.
You didn't read I posted you.
Let's not talk about that.
Well, you be busy. I get it. So okay, so for this, I'm gonna have to say this is like my this is for me like Black Panther casting / like Luke Cage sort of thing. Like this has been something that I've been worried about and I've been stressing over because honestly, did you guys have any kind of understanding of who the character is? Just out of curiosity.
My only understanding of this character came from. No, actually, you thought I was just gonna say when I Googled it like 2 seconds ago. No, my only understanding is because of the Marvel video game that's come out, and I've watched different people when at a boredom like play the game a little bit.
Gotcha.
I've seen her in that, and then I'm like, oh, she's stretchy, cool. That's all I know.
Okay, all right. So
I always get confused with like Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel. I always think they're interchangeable, and I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, so like, I'm not going to go into like the long history of the Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel situation, but basically what we saw in like Avengers Endgame and also Captain Marvel, that's like Brie Larson. That's kind of like the first Ms. Marvel that was like she was the one that Rogue stole the powers, and that's how Rogue could fly around and have super strength and all that sort of stuff.
Wait, so she's Miss Marvel as well?
No. That's just like I'm setting that up as like that's the character.
Gotcha.
The first character. Let's call her the first Miss Marvel.
Okay.
Motherfucker, that's what I just said. Is it Miss Marvel or?
So she used to be Miss Marvel, and now she's Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
you see why I keep confusing the two? Like,
all I'm getting from this is Marvel needs to do a better job when they use their damn name and characters. Okay?
Yeah, because wasn't Shazam also
Captain Marvel?
Yeah.
What is going on over there with Marvel and DC, man?
Yo, it's like I honestly like it's like okay, they got Scarlet Witch, they got Black Widow, and then it's like okay, you're a female character, let's call you Marvel something. Like let's put Marvel in your name. Like we're out of names for women or something. Like relax.
So anyway, so Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel, Brie Larson is now Captain Marvel. So like that's the character.
And then there's Marvel, right?
Yes. Yes, there is.
My God. What, man?
I'm actually really proud of you right now. You have no idea.
Stop using Marvel in the name.
We're running out of names. What do we call it? Marvel? Marvel.
Oh, yes. The Fifth Element version. Perfect.
So all those were white people. Let's just put it that way.
So the brown Marvel got it. Yeah, the brown Marvel.
The only ethnic Marvel.
Oh man.
So, like let's say 10 years ago, I think a little bit more than that, but like Ms. Marvel entered the scene, and she was written by a Muslim woman who I think was a convert into Islam, and so she wrote Ms. Marvel to be technically speaking, an inhuman, because what they did in the comics is like in order to like I think they were trying to, I think it was one of the big crises. They actually released the Terrigen Mist, which is what turned people into Inhumans into the world, and it just kind of like made a whole bunch of Inhumans, and she was one of them. So she was just like a stereotype, like she was like a everyday Pakistani American. Like her parents immigrated from Pakistan, which is where my family is from.
Woo woo.
Yeah, exactly. And like they immigrated over there. She was born and raised in America, and I think she goes to New York. And so she gets hit by this Terrigen Mist, and all of a sudden she gets all these powers. And she actually is able to like stretch her arms. She's also able to like make parts of her body larger, and depending on the size of, like, say for example, she makes like a super big arm, it grows in strength for how large it gets. And I think she also can go like really small, and I think she has a couple other abilities. Like she got a good like heft of powers next to her. So, but the writing of the series by the author was so on point for like westernized raised Muslims, Pakistani Muslims especially. So it was such a big thing for all of us to have someone to actually relate to, and the fact that she's also a woman, and also the comic was critically acclaimed, and the character was like, basically she's like at the level of Spider-Man in terms of how good of a person she is and how good of a hero she is. So yeah, like we were all really happy when this came out, and like she's come to like she joined the Avengers at some point. She's like worked with like all these other like heroes and the champions. It was like she's like, let's just say in the last like 10 years she's grew to be a big fan favorite. So when it got announced that Captain Marvel was being done, they're like, okay, if we do Captain Marvel, we have to do Ms. Marvel, because the reason why she called herself Ms. Marvel is because she's a huge fan of Captain Marvel. Yeah, so so when Captain Marvel did well, they were like, yo, if we and Kevin Feige was like, hey, by the way, and this was very much after the success of Black Panther, he was like, hey, so we're going to do a Ms. Marvel, and everyone lost their fucking minds. But then everyone got suddenly very scared, and we're just like, oh shit, what's going to happen? And then Mulan came out, and everyone's like, oh, this is going to be bad. But Q2 this week, we get the casting news. She's Canadian. She's from Markham.
Oh shit.
Oh
yeah, she's from Markham. She's 18, and she's of Pakistani descent.
I'm waiting for you to say, and she's my cousin.
I would be so proud if she was.
Because it kept getting closer. So I'm like, I'm not trying to be like any kind of way, but I'm like, it's getting so close. I'm like, I'm just waiting for that last detail.
But there was going to be a final thing in that, like, she was actually on like a board of diversity for TIFF, like in terms of like the selection. So like she's already kind of made like all these sorts of like, she's 18 and she's made more gains in the industry than most people have at her age. And now she's cast as the lead for the Ms. Marvel Disney Plus TV series. So we feel pretty happy about that. Like my comic book store, like the one that I go to all the time, they were interviewed recently because they're like, hey, you know, how does it feel? And it's like, yo, we're all really happy. I wish they had been there when I was there, but whatever. I could have been interviewed, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, completely.
I'll be like, yo, you know about the Geeky Boys podcast?
There it is. That's what I was waiting for.
But the other thing that also came out recently was, because all we've heard regarding Ms. Marvel before the news about, I think her name is Imam Valeni, before that casting got called, all we knew was the dudes from Bad Boys for Life, the directors for them, who just happened to be like Muslims. They were attached to it, and everyone was like,
Yeah.
yeah. We were just like, so Mulan just came out and they just made those guys the showrunners? Turns out they're just directors for some of the episodes.
Mm.
The showrunner is actually another Muslim woman who I think she's like a Oscar-winning documentarian, and they got another director who's like done like small like sort of stuff to also be a director. So like we have a Muslim showrunner and writer, and a couple female Muslim directors, and those two guys who did A Bad Boys for Life who are also Muslim. So
Gotcha.
right now we are happy. We are very happy with what's happening right now.
And so you said this is Disney Marvel, right?
Yeah, Disney Plus.
Disney Plus. It's in Disney Plus, but it's a Marvel property. Like it's under Kevin Feige. Yeah, because like I feel you on all the Mulan statements by all means, but at the same time, if it's under Kevin Feige, I have way more faith than if it was under somebody else from Disney, because their track record's been spotty recently.
Yeah.
I mean, Mandalorian, great. Everything else, not so much.
And also, what's really nice to hear is that the thing is like, what's her name, Brie Larson, is like, I would gladly have her join my next movie, or like have her be kind of like instigated in that movie, just so we can like jump off into the TV series. Or like vice versa. And I'm like, yo, are you saying that like, Brie Larson is trying to bring like either be in the Disney Plus series or bring the girl into her movie? Because
yeah, I mean, I just want to see more of that. I mean, like we're already getting, a bunch of characters, right, that are transferring from the movie into the series, and I would love for them to start a series. So you don't do a giant movie for somebody, but you do a series. You start that character, you build them up, and they're still in the universe. There's no separation like what we had with the Defenders and all of those characters, right, where they were clearly separated.
you mean the Avengers?
No, the Defenders.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah. I was just trying to not say all their names and remember every single one. So like the Defenders, so I'll just say all four of them. But yeah, like having them start in a Disney Plus and then move into the movies, I think it'd be great, because let's say you have a character, you do like a season and you do a second season, and then all of a sudden they show up in like Spider-Man something, and you're like, oh, this, like, you have so much context for these characters and over a period of time, and you don't have to, like, you can just introduce them right when you need them, and you don't have to like do an origin film and all that kind of stuff, because you've established it over like a couple of years, right? So so like I'm just happy, like as of right now, things look very promising. Just as promising as when we found out about the whole cast and behind the scenes cast for Black Panther. Yeah. I'm actually thinking, like, with Black Panther, because it's been a while now when we first got the one character introduced through Civil War.
Yeah.
But at that point, did we know much, or was that like a secret character? Like how Spider-Man?
No. We knew Black Panther was going to be in it, and we also knew that they were making a movie.
Because it's been so long, I can't remember if we felt worried about that character at that time.
We were very worried. We were all very. T, were you worried about Black Panther? Because I was definitely.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah. I just don't. No, go ahead, T. Sorry, I didn't cut you off there.
No, I do have a question for you though, Umar. So you mentioned that this new show the showrunner is Muslim. You said, right?
Yeah.
Now, I know you've been very vocal in terms of, for example, with the movie Aladdin, and how it was directed by, was it Guy Pearce?
Guy Ritchie.
Guy Ritchie, right? Yeah.
The guy who did Snatch.
So is your issue more so like Caucasians taking on culture type properties in that regard, like in terms
because like if you have like a white person doing a culturally like specific film, it's like, okay, if the writer is really good and there's someone on set with him to be like, dude, you got to do it this way, or you got to do it this way, that's one thing. Because like even with a good script, if you get the intonations and the behaviors and the chemistry wrong, then you're going to miss the whole point. Like Mulan is kind of a perfect example, because that had a white director doing it, and you're just like, that would explain some of the awkwardness when they were doing any and all of the cultural scenes. But like my problem is, like, if you're not going to get, like, fine, I'm really, really happy they've gone with a Muslim woman, because we kind of need more of that kind of like diversity, but also they're able to kind of like get out, like, look at what Wonder Woman got. Like, we were able to get certain scenes out from Patty Jenkins with Gal Gadot that, like, I never thought possible. That I would have been like, oh, that would have been too preachy, or that would have been like, too over the head. It was subtle enough that it gets the point across. So for me, I feel if you're going to do a specifically cultural behavior and also be just like a cultural aspect that's the defining characteristic of the film, maybe best to have that culture in charge of it. Unless, of course, like you have someone like, say, for example, the director was a white dude who grew, like he was raised by a Muslim family because, I don't know, he was an orphan. And so that was the only one who took him in. So he has like a very deep understanding because he was raised in it. Fine. Like if I heard that Guy Ritchie had some specifically South Asian level of upbringing, and that's why he decided to do Aladdin, I'll be like, okay. But the proof of it that it didn't work, and also he shouldn't have been doing the film anyway. Like, I don't know why he thought he could do a musical that was set in like the Middle East.
Okay, so Darcy, I have the same question in regards to Black Panther.
Okay, I was like, you asked me some question about being brown.
No, no.
I'll be like, do tell, Darcy, do tell.
I'm just out. I'm just gonna sink into my chair and we good. Like,
no. So my question is similar, but in regards to Black Panther and how it was directed by Ryan Coogler, who is not African per se. I mean, he's Black, but even then, he went out and did his own research. Like, they went to Africa and they got immersed in the culture and really got a a feel for how they wanted to depict the movie. So based on the question that I asked Umar, do you have the same sentiment in that regard, in terms of would you have preferred that Black Panther was directed by someone of color like Ryan Coogler, or does it matter? And, if a Caucasian director made the movie, would it have made a difference or impacted your opinion on it in any way?
So I'll jump first, right? So there's a couple of layers, because I love Black Panther, and I think that it's vitally important that movie was made by people of color. I think it's vitally important for that movie. There's something interesting that came out of this, though. Like, there was a lot of international love, but there were also people from Africa, different countries and whatnot, who also felt like the movie didn't fully get the mark on a lot of specific cultural pieces, right? Because Ryan Coogler is an American and didn't grow up in Africa, there's many things that probably came across a little stereotyped, right? To those individuals. And I had family members who expressed certain things to me. And so the thing, though, is that regardless, there was an underlying tone to the story that would never have come through in that movie if it wasn't for, one, being people of color, specifically Black people of color, and specifically Black Americans. As much as they're not going to get all the African things right, especially when you're taking elements of Africa and then inventing a country that doesn't exist and then bringing things together. I think like, well, people in this country don't speak exactly like this. Like, well, they're not supposed to, because they're not actually from that country. They're from take this, take that, and mix it together. But the one thing that was super vital to this movie that I loved was the whole underlying statement of how do Black people in America or North America feel in relation to Africa and feeling abandoned from, well, white people took us and did this, but Black people didn't come and save us. So we have from Africa. So we have this issue, which is the whole Killmonger character.
Agreed.
And the conflict that T'Challa has to deal with amongst that conversation. They don't solve it, but they start it, right? And so you won't get that conversation if you're not a Black person in America and deal with these emotions underneath the surface. You won't get that story. You're going to get something, like just generic about if you don't understand it. Like maybe again, Umar said, if you're not of that race but you grew up with that race, you might get it. But there's still a level of it that you won't get to touch on, because even though you've seen everybody around you deal with that racial issue, you didn't directly 100% experience that racial issue. So you're not going to have the depth of the emotions to know that at this moment you want to play it this way and tell the story this way, because you haven't felt it enough to be able to do it. So I think it's 100% vital. And even in its imperfect state, I think we wouldn't have got anywhere close to it if we did. So that,
like, kind of like going back a little, piggybacking on that, Darcy, like what we didn't know this until recently because of unfortunately the passing of Chadwick Boseman, but we found out Ryan Coogler was in deep conversation with him. Like they were trying to make a lot of, like they both were coming at it from their points of view and trying to capture as many things as they experience, but also what they know happens and like what they know that happens to their family and friends. And they were trying to put as much of those points in to the film to kind of make it more richer. I'm not saying that a Caucasian or a non person of color of that particular color or group directing it wouldn't have allowed conversation, but like it would have been more like tell me, not a dialogue where you're able to kind of get the nuances necessary.
Yeah, no, I agree.
How about you, Tax? Like, the same question to you. Like, what do you feel about that?
No, I definitely agree with both of you guys in the sense of, like, I just think back to like Boys in the Hood, for example. I couldn't, like, having watched that film over and over again, I couldn't imagine a Caucasian person directing that film, because it goes back to what you just said, Umar, in terms of like it's a matter of telling me about the experience rather than living the experience and showing the experience, right? It's like yes, you're white, maybe you've grown up in the hood and you know what that's like because you're in that environment, but like Darcy was saying, there's layers to that experience of being in the hood. Like the experience that you get as a white person in the hood, I'm sure is vastly different than how it is for a black person, right? And so when you get that visceral experience firsthand and then you're showing it, it comes off in a much deeper rooted way in terms of the message that you're trying to convey, right? And so it's when it's on the other side and it's a white person or just like a person that's not a minority telling the story, it's almost like regurgitation, right? It's like it's being spoon fed and then you're kind of telling it based off of your interpretation of that experience rather than how it actually is based off of emotions and things of that nature. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like Black Panther, for example, because I connect so much with that, much like Darcy, I feel was a lot more impactful because of the fact that it was directed by a person of color. Even though Ryan Coogler isn't like African, the fact that he still gets it from the like there's certain layers and elements that are still included in the movie because it means that much more because of how powerful and how impactful that movie was. It's showing minority, like Black people as represented as like kings and royalty, which is something that was a very rare thing that didn't really happen in the movie industry, right? And so like a lot of people weren't seeing that. We were often being depicted as gangsters or like people from the hood or like drug dealers or whatever the case may be, right? So to see that and to see that representation is so much more impactful, especially considering who's behind the film, right?
I want to, if you guys don't mind, I want to ask another question before we move on. What were both of your views on Luke Cage, the series?
Interesting. Like, I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot, but there were moments that just kind of fell flat for me. I don't know, like, you asked me that, and it's like it's been a while since I watched it, so like I don't have much to memory. I had another point I want to throw in the last thing, but I'll let T throw his thoughts out on Luke Cage first.
I same with Darcy. I don't really remember a whole lot of it. I just remember that it at times it stayed very current in the sense of, I think the first season was right around the time of Trayvon Martin or shortly after,
Yeah.
and they did an episode.
The second
play
season.
him.
The
It was
second
the
season
second season.
started. Second season. I think it was the second season. Maybe it could have been the first, but he started. I think it was the second because he came in wearing a hoodie.
With the hoodie, yeah.
And it was the whole thing about they were shooting at him and he's wearing the hoodie and he was bulletproof. And it was the contrast between that and what happened to Trayvon Martin. Like there was a lot of good stuff in the show. It kind of fell flat with certain villains in certain moments, especially when it came to like wearing a suit or something like that. That, you know, like a lot of times they just fall flat. You're like, and now we're gonna put on the suit, and you're like, oh, okay. It just doesn't work, right? So. But you mind if I switch back to the thing I was gonna say before?
For sure.
So, piggybacking on what Tactix was saying about Boys in the Hood and the stuff I was saying earlier, think of when you're like in grade 3 or 4, and the teacher's like, you need to write a little like story, right? And when you're a child and you don't have a lot of experience, don't have a lot of like stories in your own life, you write things in either very people speak in a lot of exposition or they're very descriptive in like the moments require these big setups, right? These like events to happen. If you wanted to depict like a realistic experience of say, and I've never lived this, but like say like a gangster experience, it's not a lot of times you see in a movie, they'll set up where it's like this thing happens and this big giant thing. And, like there's all these moments that like, they're very like, you can play them out. You can see exactly what's going to happen before they happen. But more likely in reality, it's going to be a normal day with normal conversation where something starts to shift and things start to change. And if you don't have those experiences, what those things, how they happen, you write them in a way that where you're trying to emulate off other people's experiences versus what your experience is like. If you want to describe what like every day and then racism happens in a movie, you need to know what a normal, like what that person's life would have been like when those moments happen. They can draw for them because those days where they experience, like every day I've experienced racism, they don't, I didn't like go out of my house and it was like blatantly obvious that today is going to be a racist day. And we could track all these experiences back to when this happens. That usually comes out of nowhere. And when you write that story, like if you see Fruitvale Station, you know, Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler's like first big film, everything about that film, you know what's coming, but everything about it is like a normal life. Everything is like super normal until it leads to the moment where everything becomes abnormal and flips upside down and becomes a horrible end to a film and an important story to tell. And, you know, if you're going to try to tell the nuances of being a brown person, you're going to be like, okay, how do I tell this moment where a brown person deals with this and this and this with, say, in their family? Okay, I got to set this up. The mother does this, And it's like more likely your mother just says that to you randomly on the cuff on the way out the door. You don't set up this giant thing where she makes this statement, makes this point where you feel this emotion about, you know, the thing that mothers always say to you in this culture that bothers you. You don't set that up. It just happens. It's part of life. And I don't know, that's my whole thing is like, you're gonna be like a child, you know?
No, I completely agree because like it's not like we are. There's not a lot of it, but it's not like we haven't had depictions of brown people in America and like growing up in America. But the thing is, they've always been kind of like tailored over from the perspective of the outside, trying to act like they're on the inside. It's like, oh, well, you know, I knew this kid who was Indian, or I knew this kid who was Pakistani, and like, you know, their parents wouldn't let them do that. And so like they write it from that perspective. So like they try to fill in the gaps that way. But I see what you're saying. Like someone from the same background or from a similar background would be able to understand, especially from like growing up in America and the individual, like Ms. Marvel, for example, like as we're discussing, she's born and raised in America, but she has parents who are immigrants. So like it makes sense that you would get people who are either children of immigrants themselves or had to actually be raised in America, so they have that level of a cultural understanding to fill in the gaps and to make the conversation, just like you say, not just be placed, but be like a story of it.
Yeah, the reason I posed the question is because I was watching John Campea, and he was talking briefly about it in regards to like race and directors, you know, directing movies that are outside of their race in a sense. And John Campea brought up the point about how if we start bickering over, you know, for example, if a white person were to do Black Panther or a white person do Mulan or whatever the case may be, then it now kind of raises an additional argument on the other side, where if like a white person is like looking at this and be like, okay, well, why, like, then if that's the case, then there should be a rule that suggests that, you know, minorities can't direct, like Captain America or, Spider-Man or whatever the case may be. But to both of your points, and I guess mine as well, it's not so much about the race, it's about the culture. And it's like Captain America isn't rooted in like a culture. It's just he's just a white American. You know what I mean? If it'd be different if it was like we're talking about, The Godfather, which is rooted in like Italian culture in a sense, right? Where it's like, a black person probably wouldn't be the best for that kind of movie. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, he could, but he's not. You can't really relate to that. You know what I mean? So, for me, I agree with you guys. It's more so about the culture.
I see the point, and it is that is a person of privilege clearly making that statement.
Yeah,
because, that's a white guy. Not like he's speaking.
Like all lives matter.
He's speaking so simplistically,
Or if he's like, okay, if the N-word is wrong for me to say, but like other people can use it, then shouldn't it mean that everyone can't use it? It's like, oh, well, so just because you're being excluded from something, that means everyone can't have it. Mm-hmm. But like, I can see the point in that. Yes, if we're discussing that people of like, but the thing is, we're making a cultural film of a minority group that, in a time when cultural films aren't exactly done well, or if they're done well, like it's begrudgingly or barely. It's like a lot of these films that we're discussing, it's like they were good because they're like one of the only ones out. Mm-hmm. So like before comic book movies became such a rage, we had like 5 comic book movies, and like we held on to them despite like no matter how bad they were, we held on to them. So it's kind of similar. We're in a cultural film that defines cultural stereotypes. Like before, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon made it big, or I'm trying to remember what was after that. But nonetheless, like we had the Joy Luck Club for people of Asian descent. Like when Crazy Rich Asians came out, like I know a lot of people had some problems with it, but at the same time they were saying like we don't really have much else. So if we're going to start beginning to create cultural films that showcase a specific culture, maybe not having white people do that on as well is probably like, we can, if you get a cultural individual to write the film, that's better than nothing. But as we've discovered, films are successful with a combination of writer, director, and actors all working together.
Yeah, and it's a misguided representation of the culture, because I know, Umar, you had an issue with Aladdin. I personally didn't, because I don't know much about the culture. So I'm watching this assuming, oh, okay, that's how shit really is. And you're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, my bad. So, like, it's I get what you're like the passion now, because it's like if a person, came and like completely botched Black Panther, going back to that example. And I know, Darcy, you mentioned that some people had some issues with the representation of it. Again, we have to keep in mind that this is a fantasy film. It's not really, it's not real. I mean, it's rooted in some sort of reality, but if they completely disrespected or botched the culture, and they're presenting it in a way that comes off authentic, and then people are watching these movies thinking, oh, that's how Africa really is, and whatnot, and it's wrongfully depicted, then it just sends the wrong message, and it's a lot of confusion across the board.
I want to throw something out here, though. It's that it's not just about culture, and it's not just about gender. So let me make this take this abstract for a second. If you were going to make a movie like Interstellar, right? Yeah. Where the movie is heavy about science. The word I'm going to use for this is it's nuanced in science. If you make a movie that is like a dumb apocalyptic film that is supposed to be fun and dumb, then it's not nuance and science. So in the difference between those two films, one, you can just make up stuff that's very exposition and very dumb and like descriptive and like just doesn't have much depth to it because it's supposed to be. People know, oh, I'm buying into a fun, everything's gonna blow up kind of film, right? But if you're gonna do Interstellar, Fast Furious, you need to. He had a scientist who worked with him who wouldn't let him go too far outside the realms of science. If you're going to do a nuanced film, or you're going to do a film that your audience who's wanting to buy into this says, you know what, I'm a female, you're going to take a big female idol, I really want to feel represented. So someone's coming and you're saying, hey, look, I want to buy a car, okay? And I really want to have nice leather seats. And you're like, you know what? I'm not going to give you leather seats because I don't want to. Then the customer's going to be unhappy. Mm-hmm. So in this case of the movie, you want the nuance of a female director because it's important. You want female writer and representation because the nuance of the film requires it. In this case, culture is the nuance that is important to the film. It is not to say that white people can't direct black people and black people can't direct white people. That's just a simplistic, dumbass, racist mindset that's like being held down because people are like, oh, you're taking away my toys and I can't have them, right? So everyone doesn't get toys. It's like it's about the nuance of what is important in the film and what to make the best product. Switch it up. Don't just go to the old boys club of the friends that you know and say, hey, you've always done great films. You can do another great film. We'll just get somebody to write it. And it's like, yeah, but none of these people understand the nuance, and you're disservicing your customer because your customer is expecting something of nuance.
And also we've gone past the level of like show. Like let's use Aladdin for an example. Like they like actually also use Crazy Rich Asians. Like they hired Asian actors, but like a lot of people were upset that they weren't like choosing people like from Singapore. Or like that sort of stuff. They got like Chinese people to fill in for like Japanese people, and they're just because they look Asian, they're like put them in the film. And nowadays, that's not like from apparently Black Panther felt the same way, and Aladdin definitely people felt the same way. But also then again, they also painted a few people brown just to skirt them by. So like
they did brown face. Oh damn! I didn't see it, but I feel bad I missed it.
I'm glad to say that they weren't like the main actors, but like still, like let's just say that like some people were not, So I'm just
googling it now. I'm like, who has the brown face?
So all I'm saying is like, it's fine because like that's not to say that a white person couldn't possibly direct any of these cultural films, but we're not saying you can't do it. We're saying you're not going to do a good job of it, especially if it's specifically cultured, because that's something like people want to see, and they don't want a whitewashed version of it because they're not seeing themselves in it. They're seeing how you see us.
Yeah, I mean, a good example for people to look at. I mean, it's more work than a lot of these films will ever put in. But you look at, oh my God, I forget the name of the film. It was a Pixar film based in Mexico. Coco. Like the detail that they went into in terms of research about the culture. A lot of the people making that film are not Mexican, right? Yeah. But they had a co-director who was Mexican, even though it was mainly directed by a white guy. I think if I remember my details correctly, and it's just like you put people in, you get experts, right? You when you got to go in for special surgery, you get the special surgeon. You don't just put your general doctor in and be like, yeah. Good luck, right? He's never done this before. Neurosurgeon is not a special field or anything, but throw the guy who just doles out medicine every week, right? Like you got to bring the right people to the right job, and they don't bring the right people to the right job, and then they want to paint these simple brushes like, oh yeah, well only black people can direct black people, which is actually a like racist limiting factor because like great, now how many black films are you going to do, right? Oh yeah. Well, it's just another way for them to control shit. Anyways, I
now,
digress. Getting too intense at this.
Yeah. So moving on, but another piece of news that we found out very recently was that Jamie Foxx and potentially Andrew Garfield, but Jamie Foxx officially has been confirmed to be in the third Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland. Now, this is big news because Jamie Foxx was Electro, and he's playing Electro again in the Spider-Man 3, but he was in Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. And that was a completely different universe.
They know, man. If they watching this podcast, they know about that movie.
or not. We don't know. But nonetheless, like, so this is a big deal because, do you guys think that they're actually hinting that we're going to get the multiverse in the third one? Oh my God, are they going to bring in Miles Morales?
Well, they already brought in J. Jonah Jameson, and he's supposed to be from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. He's the same.
I did not even click that in.
He's the same character.
Yep.
So
I was just so happy to have J.K. Simmons back. I just stopped it right there. I'm like, oh my God, he's back.
Yeah, but I mean, he's from the same universe. It's just like they explained that it was just an older version of him. They were actually going to. There was a story that was out where they were saying that they were actually going to still use the hairpiece, but they just didn't have it. They didn't have it in time, so they just ended up going with the look of like him being bald or whatever. So, but it's the same dude from the same universe.
I wonder if they'll do. This is gonna be kind of weird, but like what they're gonna do the Flashpoint kind of stuff that they did with the TV CW thing, done better. But like when they had that multiverse thing going on with all the CW shows.
Oh,
no, the CW shows. And they collapsed it at the end and they made like one Earth out of it. And then certain people from other Earths ended up on the main Earth so they could bring the characters together, right? I wonder if when the snap happened, if there'd be some kind of like has something to do with it, because he's already there. Like the J. Jonah Jameson is already there, and we haven't delved into all the Scarlet Witch stuff that could happen. So I'm just wondering if like more has happened with the snap than we know, like, and they'll find some way to backfill that information.
That's actually a very interesting idea. So you're suggesting that possibly they are like the people that Hulk brought back are not actually from the same universe.
That it's not perfectly identical. Right, like
that would be fascinating.
Like I wouldn't say that like every person is from a different universe. It's more like when half of everybody in existence went out, it wasn't just half of everybody in their universe. It was half of everybody in all universes and in the multiverse. And when it collapsed back, maybe it consolidated to one because
that makes sense because Thanos, when he wiped away everyone the first time, he had the gauntlet, and the gauntlet was like perfected. It was like kind of like he was able to use it like individually and not have it like tear him asunder. But with Tony's version with the nanotech, that was imperfect. It was hurting everyone who's holding it at all times, including Thanos. So that.
Wait, what do you mean? It was hurting him?
Because so when Hulk was using it, it was like electrocuting him the whole time. Same thing same thing with Tony. But when Thanos did it at the same time, just before what's her name, Captain Marvel takes his hand and starts like bending his fingers. When he was holding it, it was also like electrocuting him at the same time, and he was about to snap his fingers while that was happening. So that shows that the gauntlet wasn't fully in tune with what they needed it to do.
Yeah. I mean, no matter how we analyze it, we know that like Tony Stark's glove is not going to be as good as what it was meant to be in, right? Like, it is a fallback plan, right? Or fallback tool. So like, I just wonder if there's something to that effect. And I mean, I'm a big fan of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. I love them. I even still like Amazing Spider-Man 2, despite its issues, right? Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, like that Rhino is a complete waste of time. Like, I'm like, you could have skipped that whole guy because he did nothing for the film. You literally just could have taken the Rhino out and just had regular bank robbers, and that would have been a totally fine way to start the film, and you would never had to bring him back.
Agreed.
And they definitely didn't need to rush the Goblin. It should have just been all about Electro and maybe a touch of Goblin, setting up for a third film. Would have been a much better film. but everything with him and Emma Stone is just like unbelievable.
Perfection.
Unbelievable. I mourned for 2 weeks that scene. It took me 2 weeks to shed the emotions from that scene. How good that scene was for me.
I still haven't seen that scene again. Like since we saw it in theaters, I'm like, I can't go through that again.
That scene got up there with like the Fresh Prince, like father not showing up scene, and how emotional it was for me. And that scene still makes me cry. So,
He's like I was fine with the scene.
Yeah, I'm good.
It was unexpected. I was like, oh shit. We all knew it was coming.
Yeah.
We didn't know it was gonna happen that way. Like,
yeah.
It was how it was played and all the stuff in the movie, but there's still so much good in that movie. Even though the story stuff was stupid, a lot of the Spider-Man moments, like, you know, the whole spider web thing in Times Square, like, that was so good. It was so well done, right? It's just unfortunate there's so much good in the film, and then there was like just too much stuff in the film. But I'd be excited to see him come in. I would excited to see some kind of multiverse. I think him and Tom Holland would be a lot of fun. I think that
would be awesome. They
would do so good because like I think they're just both class acts, and I think that they're both really like funny, and I just think they would be like, they both show up and they'd be like, huh? And they'd just be like, they're both different, slightly different Spider-Man humors would just go like, can you imagine like them and then somebody else just showing up and be like, can you guys shut up?
I think because we also mentioned Tobey Maguire, right? Yeah. I think what I would want to see, not him come back as another Spider-Man, but have him come back as Uncle Ben.
Tobey Maguire?
Tobey Maguire's Uncle Ben.
But we're not talking multiverse. Now we're talking recasting, right?
No,
because we don't have a casting.
Actually seen Uncle Ben.
We've never seen Uncle Ben.
That's actually a good point.
And he'd be the same age as Marissa Tomei.
Would he? Hold on, I gotta check that out. Oh my god.
Interesting.
Oh my god! If that's true, I'm gonna lose my shit.
That's what I wanted. I do want to see Andrew Garfield come back as Spider-Man, and like you said, have that same kind of like banter back and forth between him and Tom Holland. I think
now they're 10 years apart.
Well, whatever. I mean, they still look. He's like Tobey Maguire still looks relatively young, but I think having 3 Spider-Men, especially in the third one, when like the focus should mainly be on Tom Holland, is going to be a little overkill. But I would love, even if it was just like a flashback, because we don't really know what Tobey Maguire is doing nowadays. But if it was like a flashback and have him show up as Uncle Ben, I would lose my shit.
I will say this: at present, we only have one more film with Tom Holland in the MCU.
Then that needs to happen. Like that would be so dope.
Because think of it this way: if they decide to do the multiverse, or they do it the way you're doing it, you basically shove all the Spider-Mans in one film, and then you can have Miles Morales take over from there.
Think. I mean, I'm game for Morales kind of taking over.
Actually, wait, no, they can't do that because that's still part of Sony.
Yeah. The thing is, I'm not feeling the Uncle Ben vibe because
you will.
For me, it feels like a recasting, right? Like yes, we've never seen but what I'm saying is you're gonna have Andrew Garfield come in, right, as Spider-Man. So we're gonna take from the existing movies and bring the characters in with the actors who played them into this film. Then I'm gonna be like Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man. Like it's gonna go through my head, and then I'm gonna be like, he's like not Spider-Man. Like I could see him playing an older Spider-Man who plays a Uncle Ben like role, but I would mentally be thinking, yeah, okay, but when are you gonna put on a suit? Like I wouldn't think of him as Uncle Ben. That's for me a recasting. Yes, we've not seen who this Uncle Ben is, but also my other point is I don't think he could get Tomei any day of the week. Okay, he does not look like he could get her. Okay, like there's not a lot of people.
Wait, hold on. She had a relationship with Happy. Are you telling me that Tobey Maguire can't pull, but Happy can? Come the fuck on, nigga. Come on, yo. Like, that's not happening anytime soon, bro.
Hold on.
If she's ready to settle for Happy, Come on.
You know what? No, Umar, hold up. You know what? That is a fair point. I forgot about Happy. But I mean, he did work for Tony Stark, so that gives him a huge leg up.
In Darcy's defense, she was like a widower, and this nice guy was like knows her son, her surrogate son.
Yeah, so that's a step down, then, bro. She's like, Tobey Maguire, yo, I gave him a chance, he died, so fuck, I gotta go even lower. I gotta lower my standards even more and go for Happy.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't know. I just feel like Happy has, I don't know. I just feel like I see Tobey Maguire sitting beside her, and you just look at it and be like, how the fuck did you get hurt,
bro? Guy, put Happy and Aunt May side by side. Where in reality of Foxx is that ever going to be a thing?
Man, have you not seen DJ Khaled? He's got a wife. Like, these big men be pulling game all day long. Okay, they got extra confidence and they know good food.
Oh man,
I'm just trying to find. Okay, yeah, there's actually a character who would fit. Wait, I think who said that Tobey Maguire playing like an older Spider-Man type character?
That's me.
Darcy.
Yeah, so Darcy, there is actually a character called Ezekiel in the comics, and he also has spider powers almost identical to Peter, but like he didn't become a hero; he used it to become a businessman. And
we're not going to see Tobey Maguire as anything but the original Peter Parker. Like, I'm sorry, he can't come on the screen and be like, "Yeah, hi, I'm." Who the fuck are you?
Ezekiel?
No, you're Peter Parker. Get it straight. You're Peter Parker. 2 P's, okay? Make it easy.
Okay, so, well, nonetheless, we're happy with the exciting news that we'll get Jamie Foxx for Spider-Man 3, potentially Andrew Garfield. I agree. Those, like, the 2 British guys who are pretending to be Americans definitely know how to kill it in terms of being Spider-Man. All right, so if we have time, let's get through the Extraction review.
Cool. So
what'd you think?
What do you think?
That's the whole review.
I enjoyed it. Like, considering that this film was like basically set in India and had like, granted, I'm Pakistan, my family's Pakistan, but like India has very similar cultural aspects to it, and also watching Bollywood films like growing up has made me somewhat attuned. I have to say that I found the film to be really, really fun. The action sequences were awesome. It is so nice to see Chris Hemsworth just like shutting things down. It's like, wow, like he finally is using his build in a non like I'm gonna smash things. It's like I'm gonna fuck people up.
Yeah.
And did he ever? And yeah, it just I'm not saying like the story was basic, but to be honest, like you didn't really need that much story in one of these like gotta keep the people, gotta protect the package sort of situations. And you know, I liked how they had like the dude who who actually worked for his dad, who actually wasn't trying to kill the kid. He just was like, I don't want to pay because I can't afford it. I was like, okay, that's a unique switch. I loved the Iranian actress that got to be Chris Hemsworth's like handler. She was badass, and yeah, just like the film was great action sequences one after the other, and that's really all I really wanted. So I was happy.
Yeah. I'm with you on everything you just said. I also love how did they also incorporate the guys from Raid Redemption? I feel like that was a detail. They incorporate them into some of the stunt choreography.
I wouldn't be surprised because honestly, like aside from like Old Guard and John Wick, like it was that level in terms of like action sequences that I really liked.
Yeah, it was so good. Like the one shots and stuff like that they filmed and stitched together were really, really good. I loved it.
Yeah, like, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I love the fact that, like, even though you could tell CG definitely was taking part in a lot of it, the long take fight sequences were awesome.
Yeah, I didn't Sorry, go on.
I don't think there was a lot of CG. I was looking into it. They did have CG, obviously, but I don't think there was a lot more practical than most films.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was directed by a stunt guy. So I watched some of the behind the scenes. There wasn't a ton of CG that you would think in some of those film scenes. I think you may have anticipated it being, but I don't think it quite was. It might have just been some of the editing to stitch it together. Might have stood out a little bit at certain points.
T.
Yeah, I didn't realize how badly I needed to see Chris Hemsworth going hand to hand, like doing hand to hand combat. Because I realized, like, I was like, why do I like this so much? And I realized, like, through the span of like the Marvel movies, like we've only ever seen him like wield the hammer and maybe do like one or two punches, but we've never seen him really wreck shop and like, be just folding dudes like the way he did, and like the hits like were so impactful. You felt every hit that was happening, right? And so,
damn, Darcy, sorry, Tactix. I think you're not even exaggerating. Like I can only think of like a couple punches he's thrown, and one of them was like all of them was with Hulk.
Yeah. Other than that, it's always him just wielding the hammer or using lightning, like
or the axe.
You rarely ever saw him go hand to hand combat with somebody.
And it was always like a big gesture where it's like people are going flying. He's not like, having to like dodge people. Like that knife fight with the brown dude, I was just like, yes.
Yeah. So when I found it, like when I saw the trailer not even when I saw the trailer, when I heard about the movie, I was kind of like, I was a little apprehensive because I'm just like, is he even really a fighter? I've never seen him really do any kind of like stunt work in that regard. And then I saw the movie and I was like, holy, this is like what Darcy was saying. It's like on a like raid type of level in terms of the fight choreography that happened. So I was like, wow, I was super impressed with that. Didn't know he had it in him.
Yeah.
I can kind of see where the raid thing comes in, because like with the rake, like when he was in the room, when he was in the room, like killing all the people trying to get the kid, and like he finds the rake, and then I was like, this reminds me of the door scene.
Yeah. Oh, I remember when that went off, and like and we watched Raid, and I was just like, oh shit, like I like lost it. The thing, actually, you're saying like, how many people have done hand to hand combat in the MCU? Captain America,
and like Winter Soldier.
Yeah, and Black Widow. Like, who else really does? Like, the Falcon barely does any hand to hand combat.
We've seen a little bit with Hawkeye,
Black Panther,
yeah. Oh, Black Panther, hands down. Yeah. I mean. There's just like not a lot of characters, because like see Thor do hand-to-hand combat, you need somebody who's equally as powerful but isn't the Hulk, right?
Yeah.
Like because you can't go hand-to-hand and do like intricate hand-to-hand combat with the Hulk, one, because he's a CG character. So how are you gonna like CG all these like hand movements and arms folding without it looking weird?
Yeah, well, they did that in Infinity War to a certain extent with him and Thanos, but
yeah, but those were big.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because he's not a martial artist, right? So you can't really.
But also, because the thing is, like, since they're the only like you're saying, like, the only people he can actually fight hand to hand are people either much bigger than him who are clearly CG, or Loki. But like Loki's never been at that level of power, so he like you definitely need, and also like. The only time we've ever got to see like proper hand-to-hand fighting was with Winter Soldier against Captain America. Like that's when we were just like,
yeah. You'll see a little bit with Black Widow at times too,
and she's always spinning people around, like spinning around people and stuff.
I mean, the next best thing then is Black Panther, Killmonger. I mean, that was the best fight was the longest fight. Sorry, was a CGI fight, which is unfortunate, because then it didn't hold the same weight that a normal fight would have. So
I just remember when Black Panther was fighting Winter Soldier, when they're both like just in civvies, and they're like they're in the building, and like they're just like going to town on each other, and like he like throws him over the balcony, and then he turns around and the guy's gone, and I'm like, yo.
Yeah. I'm gonna be sad not having too many Captain America films anymore, just to not get freaking like a good hand-to-hand combat.
Well, they're doing Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, hopefully that comes out really well in terms of that stuff.
And what's that other one? Shang-Chi or
Shang-Chi's coming out?
Yeah, so that's gonna be like there's gonna be some good fight scenes in there.
Oh god, I really hope so, because what was the last like martial arts movie that was? Oh, okay. Iron Fist?
Yeah.
The worst martial artist ever.
Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
I just remember the fight in Defenders between him and Daredevil, and I'm like, yo, how is Daredevil schooling you right now? And you're like a fucking martial artist that's been trained by monks. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
he's supposed to be a guy who defeated a dragon, and Daredevil's taking him out.
Yeah. It just, you know what I hope for Shang-Chi, like that they get like this is always my favorite, but like, can you get the guys from Raid who did the choreo to come in?
Yeah.
Just like, and you don't have to make it. It doesn't have to be gruesome and gory and all that kind of stuff. Like that. Like
John Wick 3 had like those like the actors who were in the fights for the Raid.
His fans.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like,
I love that, yo.
Sorry, what about that? His fans? You love? Sorry,
no, they were fanatics of John Wick. They were like they were trying to kick his ass, basically.
But the thing was like their leader, who was like the bald dude, who was like clearly a fan. He was just
it's an absolute honor.
I'm a big fan. Like, how'd I do? And I was like.
So, you know, the thing is, and John Wick's like such a great example because it's one of the films that really goes after making it real, right? Like the way gunfights would actually go, trying to take into account like muzzle flashes, which is a real thing, like just really like the weight of like when a fight gets heavy and hard, like the actual like drain on the body, just that stuff is like when it's so real like that, it feels so much better. You can have so much less actually happen, and you remember it way more.
And that's what happened in Extraction. Like, you saw them tired. You saw them like get like when they're like the dude got hit by a truck, and like he didn't get back up, and it was like, oh, he was just like he was out for a while. Like he came back a little bit later, and like Chris Hemsworth, he disappeared for a while because he fell out of a building. And he was like kind of like on the ground for a while, and then he came back with a truck and knocked the guy over. So it's like there's the realism there, and like and the knife fight was scary because it's like, yo, he had like a curved knife, the other guy had a big ass dagger.
Yeah,
I didn't know who was the root for in that fight.
Yeah, and knives are like sometimes they say more dangerous than guns, right?